Welcome back to Nature Documentary for Sleep. If you enjoy these late-night expeditions, leave a comment and consider liking and subscribing. Tonight, you're walking into Death Valley before sunrise, thinking you've planned it well. The salt flats at Badwater Basin look calm, and the air feels almost cool. But it's already stripping moisture from your throat with every breath you take. You ration water early, step onto the crunchy salt polygons, and aim for a remote weather station. As the light climbs, the bright ground reflects heat back up into your skin, and shade becomes a theory. The valley's shape does the rest, below sea level, walled by mountains that wring storms dry, under a clear sky that doesn't filter much. And by late morning, the problem isn't just temperature, it's how fast your cooling system runs out of usable water. So, what exactly fails first here? Your route, your hydration math, or your body's ability to shed heat through evaporation? You keep walking anyway, because the plan looks clean on paper, and plans love the dark. In the dark, you are efficient. In the dark, the valley lets you pretend it is just another workplace. You are not here to sightsee. You are a field tech with a key to a padlock, a spare sensor wrapped in foam, and a service window that closes when the air turns mean. Your headlamp makes the salt polygons look like a cracked porcelain floor. Each one is outlined in shadow, each one a neat little cell, like the valley organized itself for your convenience. It did not. Badwater Basin is not a floor. It is a crust, and underneath it is a long story of water arriving, evaporating, and leaving its minerals behind like unpaid debts. Your boots find the surface brittle in places and softly hollow in others. The crunch is satisfying until you realize the sound is also feedback. Every step shakes fine salt dust into the air. You taste it, and it makes you thirstier, which feels unfair. But fairness is not one of the minerals out here. You check your watch. Then the eastern ridge, still a black cutout against a slightly less black sky. The weather station is a dot in that direction, somewhere beyond the salt. You have a handheld radio that mostly exists to make you feel responsible. You have a paper map because the valley likes to eat batteries. You have a GPS unit anyway because you also like to feel responsible. And you have water measured and divided, like you are negotiating with your own body. The first escalation arrives quietly, like it always does in heat country. It is not the sun, it is your breathing. Your lungs are already paying a tax. The air is so dry that each inhale comes with a small withdrawal, moisture leaving you in a way you cannot see. You stop for a moment, not to rest, but to listen. There is nothing. No insects, no leaves, no distant creek pretending to exist. Just your own footsteps and the faint whisper of your clothing. And that makes the next decision feel larger than it should. You can keep the direct line across the flats, shortest distance, maximum exposure. Or you can angle toward the edge where the salt gives way to gravel, where the alluvial fan might break the glare. The direct route wins because your brain is still cool enough to believe in math. You keep the salt polygons as your grid. You pick a seam line and follow it like it is a hallway. As the sky begins to lighten, the basin shows its real shape. It is a bowl, and you are walking at the bottom of it. You can feel that in your ears, that subtle pressure of being below the world. The mountains around you are not just scenery, they are walls, and they do what walls do. They block weather, they block shade, and they block escape routes. The valley has multiple mountain ranges stacked like bad news. To the west, the Panamint Range rises and strips moisture from Pacific air. Whatever clouds survive that are then pushed over again and again until there is nothing left to give you. This is the rain shadow effect, but translated into human terms, it is simply this. The sky has already spent its water before it reaches you. The first pale light hits the salt, and the salt answers back. The ground turns from dull gray to a clean, blinding white. It is not gentle. It is not a sunrise you enjoy. It is a light that makes you squint and lowers your tolerance for everything. Your sunglasses come out earlier than planned, and you hate that because it means the valley is moving faster than you are. You feel warmth on your shins first, not from above, but from below. The salt reflects sunlight like a mirror that hates you. The heat climbs up your legs and settles in your clothes. You think about your vehicle behind you, parked at the edge of the basin, a small metal promise. You turn to look, and it is already smaller than it should be. Distance in dry air is a liar. It offers you clarity with no scale. Things look close, crisp, almost touchable, until you walk toward them for an hour and they barely change. That is the valley being economical with your hope. You keep moving because stopping feels like admitting the air is winning. Your water plan is simple. Small sips, timed, with an electrolyte sachet every few hours. A measured system, a spreadsheet you carry in your head. But the first crack in that system comes early. Your mouth goes tacky, like you have been chewing paper. You swallow, and there is no satisfaction. The saliva is gone before it can do its job. You take a sip ahead of schedule, just to make your tongue feel less alone. It helps for a minute, then the dryness returns, and it brings friends. The valley floor begins to change in texture as you approach a faint rise. The salt crust becomes uneven, more broken, with small patches where gravel pushes through like dark freckles. These are the places where the crust is thin, where water once pooled shallow, then retreated, leaving behind a fragile skin. You step carefully because breaking through is not just annoying. It can slice your boot sole on sharp salt edges. A cutout here is not blood loss, it is time loss, and time is the only currency the heat respects. The sun clears the black mountains, and everything sharpens. The basin becomes a bright sheet, and the mountains become dark teeth. You glance toward the weather station again, and now you can see it as a thin line against the plain. Metal lattice, a mast, maybe a small solar panel catching the first direct light. It looks simple, it looks doable. And that is the trap, because simple tasks in Death Valley have complicated endings. You feel the air change as the morning pushes toward late morning. It is still, mostly, but the stillness has a temperature now. It presses against your face and neck. Your skin begins to sweat in small bursts, then dries again almost immediately. You reach back and touch your shirt between your shoulder blades. It is damp for a second, then it is already crusting with salt. Evaporation is supposed to be your superpower. It is how humans cheated the savannah, how you run long distances and survive heat better than most mammals. But evaporation has a cost. It spends water to buy you cooling. And here, in air this thirsty, The price goes up. Your body tries to keep up, and the valley raises the rent. You cross the last stretch of clean salt and step onto the alluvial fan. The transition is immediate. The crunch becomes a grind as your boots bite into gravel and small stones. The color shifts from white glare to a dark, dusty brown. You think, good, less reflection. But the fan has its own talent. It absorbs heat. It drinks sunlight and holds it, the way a cast iron pan holds heat long after the stove is off. Your feet feel heavier, not from fatigue yet, but from friction. The gravel rolls under you like ball bearings. Each step is a tiny slide, a tiny correction. That means more work for the same forward progress. That means more heat generated inside you, the kind you cannot step away from. A breeze arrives, and for half a second, you are grateful. Then it hits your face like a hairdryer. It is not cooling you, it is drying you. It strips sweat before it can pool. It steals moisture from your lips and eyes. It makes your nostrils sting, as if the air is slightly chemical. This is where people make a common mistake. They feel wind and they assume relief. But wind in Death Valley is just convection with bad intentions. Hot air moving faster is still hot air, and it accelerates evaporation, which accelerates dehydration. You adjust your hat, pull your neck gaiter higher, and keep going. You pick out a line of old telephone poles in the far distance, half buried, marching along the valley like a forgotten spine. They become your pacing markers. Reach the next pole, sip. Reach the next one, check your watch. It is a trick you use to keep your mind orderly. Order makes you feel safe. But the poles do not get closer the way they should. The air shimmers now, and the landscape starts to behave like it is underwater. Edges wobble. The horizon melts. The ground looks wet in patches, like someone spilled a lake and forgot to clean it up. You know it is a mirage. You know it is light bending through layers of hot air. But knowing does not stop your brain from reacting. Your eyes keep trying to believe in water. Your throat keeps trying to negotiate. You speed up because the thought arrives fully formed and very reasonable. Beat the heat, get to the station, do the work, get back. It is a clean, heroic little narrative, and it is how people cook themselves. Your sweat rate increases, and you do not notice at first because the wind is stealing the evidence. The moisture leaves your skin and vanishes into the air like it was never there. You feel dry, so you assume you are fine. But your body is quietly draining. Breathing is doing most of it now. Every exhale carries water away, invisible, constant, petty. You take another sip earlier than planned, and this time the sip is larger. You tell yourself it is fine because you are working harder. You tell yourself you will make up for it later, but later is not a guaranteed resource. The valley begins to tilt your perception. The station is ahead, but the plain is so open that your brain cannot measure progress well. There are no trees, no buildings, no friendly objects to shrink past you. Just gravel, pale dust, and distant rock. The mountains look close enough to touch, but they do not move. You glance down at the ground and see the fan's texture, a scatter of stones, sorted by old floods, bigger rocks in one band, finer gravel in another, like someone used a giant sieve. This is the fan's history. Flash floods come off the mountains and dump their load here again and again. each storm rearranging the surface. When you walk on it, you are walking on a catalog of violence that happens fast and then disappears. It makes your slow suffering feel almost personal. The weather station gains detail at last. You can see the mast braced with guy wires. You can see the white radiation shield around the temperature sensor, like a stack of plastic saucers. You can see the small solar panel angled toward the sun, calm and confident. The air between you and it wobbles harder now, as if the station is being viewed through clear jelly, and the mirage patches on the ground look more convincing, more like shallow pools. They form in dips along faint channels, places where water would make sense if water existed here on your schedule. You feel a sting on your lower lip, and when you touch it, the skin feels slightly cracked. You swallow again and your throat clicks, a dry little sound that irritates you. Your body is giving you updates, and you keep filing them under later. A new decision point presents itself without asking permission. The direct line to the station crosses more open fan, more wind, more sun. But off to your right, a shallow wash cuts through the gravel, a dry channel with slightly lower ground. The wash offers easier footing, you think, because the stones look smaller down there. It also offers the idea of shade, because its banks rise just enough to cast thin shadows in places. You angle toward it, telling yourself you are being smart. You step down into the wash, and immediately your boots sink slightly into looser gravel. It shifts under you. The air feels different here. Not cooler, just quieter. The breeze is blocked by the banks, so the heat becomes more intimate, resting on your skin. But the footing is smoother, and you gain speed for a few minutes. That feels like a win. Wins are dangerous out here because they make you spend. You spend energy, you spend water, you spend optimism. The wash bends gently, and you follow it because it is easier than fighting the slope back up. You tell yourself it will curve back toward the station. These channels all come off the same mountains, you reason. They must all point the same way. The valley is happy to let you believe that. The wash deepens slowly. Its sides rise from ankle height to knee height, then to waist height. The gravel becomes coarser, and you start stepping over fist-sized stones. Each one wobbles, and your ankles do extra work. Your calves begin to burn in a steady, quiet way. You look up and realize you can no longer see the flat plain behind you. The wash walls cut your view into a narrow strip of sky and a ribbon of forward path. You stop and climb a few steps up the bank to check your bearing. From that higher point, you can still see the weather station, thankfully. But your vehicle is gone from sight. It has been swallowed by distance and glare and the slight rise of the fan. That is the moment the valley feels larger than your plan. You feel a small pulse of anxiety, not panic, just the body's polite warning. You take a sip to calm it, which is a very human mistake. The water is warm now, almost the same temperature as your mouth. It does not feel refreshing. It feels like maintenance. You climb back into the wash and keep moving. The station is closer now, but the effort cost is higher. Your breathing becomes louder in your ears. You hear the rasp of your own lungs, and it annoys you like a noisy machine. Your shirt clings and then releases as sweat forms and evaporates in cycles. You check the sun's position, and it is already climbing toward the high part of the sky. Shadows shrink. The wash's promise of shade becomes stingy. You get thin strips of darkness that cool your skin for seconds. Then, you step back into light that feels heavier. You begin to understand something important, and it arrives with the clarity of bad news. The walk back will happen under worse heat than the walk in. You knew that intellectually, but now you feel it in your timing. Every minute you spend here is a minute you will repay with interest later. You finally reach the weather station just before late morning turns into the edge of noon. Up close, it looks more fragile than you expected. A thin mast, a few instruments, a solar panel, and a metal box with a lock. It is a little island of measurement in an ocean of indifference. The lock is hot enough that you hesitate before touching it, like it might take skin as a souvenir. You wrap your sleeve around your fingers, and you turn the key anyway. The metal box pops open with a tiny sigh, as if it is relieved you showed up at all. Inside, the data logger is a simple screen and a few buttons. Nothing dramatic. It looks like something that belongs in a garage, not in a place that sterilizes mistakes. You crouch close, because the sun is directly above you now, and there is no shade. Your own shadow is a thin stain under your boots, barely worth mentioning. You think you are standing still, but you are still working. Your heart is still pushing warm blood out to the skin, hoping the air will help. The air does not help. It takes and never gives back. You lift your hand toward the mast, then pull it back fast. The metal is untouchable, like the hood of a car left in a parking lot. You use the edge of a glove, then the corner of a cloth, then the tip of a tool. Congratulations! You are now doing delicate electronics work beside a slow-motion furnace. The wind slips past the guy wires with a dry hiss, like sandpaper on glass. It is not strong enough to cool you, but it is strong enough to irritate you. You focus on the station like it is a puzzle that can be solved fast. Swap the temperature probe, clear dust from the radiation shield, confirm the transmission light, then go. That is the story you tell yourself, because stories keep the panic quiet. You press the button on the logger, and the screen wakes up. A number appears, and your brain does a small double take. The temperature is already climbing into the range that makes people start making news headlines. It is climbing faster than the forecast in your head. You scroll through the last few hours, watching the curve steepen. The valley is spiking early today, like it woke up angry. You look up at the sky, expecting to see some reason. Clouds, haze, anything that explains why the sun feels sharper. There is nothing, just clean blue emptiness. Clear skies are great for postcards. They are also great for letting sunlight arrive unfiltered and stay rude. You remind yourself that a forecast is not a promise. A forecast is a polite suggestion, and Death Valley does not do polite. You check the anemometer, the little spinning cups at the top. They rotate lazily, measuring a breeze that feels like an insult. Wind speed, wind direction, all neatly captured. The station is calm because it is not alive. It does not need to maintain a core temperature. It does not need to balance salt and water. It can sit here for years, sun bleaching it, sand sanding it down, and it will call that a normal day. You pull the spare sensor from the foam sleeve in your pack. The plastic is warm already, like it has been sitting in bathwater. You open the radiation shield, and dust puffs out. fine silt, the kind that gets into everything, including your teeth. You brush it away with a small paintbrush, gentle like you are grooming something fragile. Your fingers feel clumsy, thick, not numb, not weak, just slightly delayed. You blame the heat because blaming the heat is easier than admitting anything else. The screws fight you because metal expands when it is hot. Threads tighten, tolerances vanish, and every turn takes more effort. You feel sweat gather at your hairline, then evaporate before it can drip. Your skin is working overtime, but the evidence keeps disappearing. That is the trick here. Your body can be losing water aggressively, while you still feel dry. You tighten the last screw, and the tool slips. It clicks against the mast, loud in the silence. Your heart jumps like you dropped something important. Nothing breaks, but you feel the spike of adrenaline. And that makes you warmer. So you force yourself to breathe slowly. Slow inhales, slow exhales. Like you can negotiate with physiology. You glance at the solar panel, bright and confident. It is collecting energy with effortless efficiency. The ground around you is doing the same, just in a crueler way. Dark gravel absorbs sunlight, heats, and then radiates it back upward. That means you are getting cooked from above and below. The air is the third heating element, descending off mountains already warmed and dried. This is the valley's routine. Air rises over the ranges to the west, cools, and drops what moisture it has. Then it comes down toward you, compressing as it descends. Compression warms it, the way a bicycle pump warms in your hand. Adiabatic heating, a technical term that translates to the wind arrives preheated. You clear more dust from the shield, and you feel a strange urge to hurry. Not a rational hurry, just a crawling need to be done. The sun makes urgency feel like wisdom. You check the logger again, and the temperature number ticks upward. It is steady, patient, like a metronome for disaster. The pyranometer, a little glass dome, stares straight up. It measures sunlight, but it cannot blink. It is recording the full force of the day, joules per square meter, pure input. In human terms, it is measuring how hard the sky is pushing down on you. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve, and it comes away damp, then dries in seconds. Salt begins to form along the seam of your hat band. Your body is leaving little mineral signatures behind, like you are turning into part of the basin. You dig into the pack for the electrolyte sachets. They are supposed to be your small defense against the valley's arithmetic. Water alone is not enough for long heat exposure, not when you are sweating and breathing out salts. Without sodium and friends, your muscles start to complain, then mutiny. You pull out a handful of items, moving too fast. A zip tie, a spare bolt, a roll of tape. The electrolyte sachets are not there, but you assume you missed them. You shove the items back, careless, because the air feels impatient. Your hand catches on the mesh pocket, and you hear a soft tearing sound. It is small, nothing dramatic, but you do not stop to inspect it. You are thinking about the walk back. You are thinking about the sun's position. You are thinking, I should already be leaving. So, you finish the last check, transmission light, blinking, battery voltage, stable, sensor reading, plausible, everything is fine. Because of course the station is fine. It is you that is unstable. You lock the box again and the key feels hotter now. You tuck it away and you shoulder your pack. The strap bites into your collarbone, and you notice something odd. The pack feels lighter than it should. Not by much, just enough to trip a small alarm in your brain. You unclip the side pocket where your water bottle rides. The bottle is there, but the sleeve is wet, not soaked, just damp, and the dampness is spreading into the fabric. You lift the bottle, and the slosh is wrong. It is quieter than it should be. Your stomach drops, a cold feeling that does not belong in this landscape. You twist the cap, and the seal is imperfect. Somewhere in your rushed rummaging, you loosened it. Maybe the tear you heard was the sleeve. Maybe it was the mesh. Either way, water has been leaking slowly while you worked. It dribbled out in the sun, and the sun erased the evidence. That is the cruel elegance here. You can lose water in plain sight, and the valley will dry the crime scene. You check the other bottles. One is intact, one is lighter than planned. The math in your head shifts, and it is not a comfortable shift. You search again for the electrolyte sachets. Slower this time. You dig into every pocket, every seam, every corner. You find nothing. They are gone, either dropped in the dust or buried somewhere you will not discover until it is too late to matter. You stand there with your hands in your pack, and the heat presses on the back of your neck. This is the irreversible mistake, and it feels stupid, which is the worst kind. Not a heroic failure, not an unlucky accident, just a small lapse, a rushed moment, a tired hand. Congratulations, you have upgraded the return trip from difficult to dangerous. You look at the open plain, and it offers two options: short and exposed, straight across the alluvial fan back toward where the road should be, or longer, following the wash system where you might catch scraps of shade. Both options cost water. One costs it fast, in the sun and wind. The other costs it slow, in extra distance and effort. You stand still, trying to feel which choice is smarter. Standing still is not free either. Your body is generating heat just by existing. If you stop, the heat you made keeps building inside you, so you choose movement, because humans always do. You step away from the station, and the mast shrinks behind you instantly. The instruments keep measuring after you leave, in different witnesses. You angle toward the nearest wash because the idea of shade is now worth extra distance. You tell yourself you will walk slower. You tell yourself you will sip with discipline. You tell yourself you will be boring and careful, which is the closest thing to survival out here. The wash accepts you like a shallow trench, its gravel softer underfoot. The banks rise to knee height, then waist height again. In places, the sun cannot reach the bottom, and you step into shadow. It feels like relief for half a second. Then you realize the air is still hot. Shade here is not cool, it is just dimmer suffering. The walls of the wash are rock and sediment that have been charging all morning. They radiate heat back at you like bricks in an old oven. You are walking inside a corridor of stored sunlight. You slow down on purpose. You shorten your stride, you relax your shoulders, you stop trying to beat anything. The goal now is not speed. The goal is to keep your core temperature from creeping upward silently. Because once it climbs too far, you cannot talk it down with willpower. Heat illness is not a mood. It is a mechanical failure. You take a sip, small, and you force yourself to wait before taking another. Sip discipline sounds simple until your mouth feels like cloth. You wet a bandana and drape it under your hat, against the back of your neck. It evaporates quickly, and that evaporation pulls heat away. But it also spends water you cannot afford to waste. Everything is a trade now, and the valley sets the exchange rate. You listen to your own breathing again. It is louder than earlier, more strained. Every breath is dry, and every breath carries moisture out. The air has a hunger for water, a high vapor pressure deficit, which is a fancy way of saying it is thirsty. Thirsty air does not care if the water comes from a lake or a leaf or your lungs. It takes what it can get. You walk and you try to keep your thoughts organized. Check direction, check sun position, check water, check body. But the checks start to feel fuzzy around the edges. Not confused, just slightly more work than they should be. You catch yourself staring at a rock for too long, as if it might offer advice. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth when you swallow. You spit once, out of habit, then regret it immediately. The spit is thick, and it hits the dust with no sound. A waste. A tiny one, but they add up. You look at your arms and notice something unsettling. Your skin is hot, but parts of it feel dry. Not dry like comfortable dry, dry like the sweat stopped showing up. Patchy sweating can be an early warning sign, but it is easy to misread. You can still sweat and still be in trouble. You can stop sweating and already be in deeper trouble. The body does not send neat notifications. It sends hints, and you are expected to interpret them while your brain is warming. The wash bends, and you follow it because following is easier than deciding. The banks rise higher now, and the sky becomes a narrow strip. The breeze disappears completely. The air becomes stagnant, and the heat feels thicker, like you are walking through breath. You pause in a patch of shade, and the thought arrives. Just sit, just for a minute. Take the pack off, let your legs relax, wait for the worst of the heat to pass. It is a seductive thought because it sounds reasonable. It is also how people become still for longer than they planned. You compromise with yourself. You take the pack off, but you do not sit. You stand with your back against the wall of the wash, letting your shoulders rest. The rock behind you is warm, and you pull away. Even the shade has teeth. You force down another sip, and you feel your stomach protest. Warm water in a hot body is not comforting. It sloshes, heavy, and your gut wants to stop working to save energy. You swallow anyway because dehydration does not negotiate. A few minutes pass and you shoulder the pack again. The straps feel harsher now, as if your skin is thinning. You walk on. The wash splits ahead, two branches like a lazy fork. One looks easier, wider, with smoother gravel. The other is narrower, with rougher stones and a slight rise. Your mind wants the easy branch because your mind is tired, but your sense of direction, the part that still cares about the road, leans toward the rising branch. Roads usually sit on higher, flatter ground, not down in deeper cuts. You pick the branch that trends upward, trusting slope like it is a compass. The valley has a talent for gentle traps, and this is one of them. The upward trend is real, but it is not taking you where you think. It is taking you into a maze of low ridges and shallow gullies. The badland texture of dried debris flows. At first, it is subtle. A small bend becomes two bends. A straight channel becomes a braided set of small channels. The wash stops feeling like a guide rail and starts feeling like a suggestion. You climb out to regain a view, stepping onto the bank, then onto a small rise. From up here, you expect to see the road, or at least the open fan. Instead, you see more folds of gravel and sediment, like crumpled paper. Every ridge looks like the last ridge. Every gully looks like it leads somewhere, until it doesn't. You turn slowly, scanning for the telephone poles you used earlier. The Mirage shimmer makes the distance dance, and nothing holds still long enough to be certain. The mountains are still there, of course. They are always there, but they do not help with small navigation. They are too big, too far, like using the moon to find your car keys. You check your GPS unit. The screen is visible, but the numbers feel abstract. A few digits, a line, a bearing arrow. You follow it for a while, then the channel forces you around another bend, and the arrow spins slightly, recalculating. That little spin is more unsettling than it should be. It is the device admitting the terrain is complicating things. You realize you have been holding your jaw clenched. You relax it, and your teeth feel gritty. Dust and salt ground into you slowly. Your calves twitch once, a small, involuntary pulse. Then again, muscle cramps do not begin as dramatic knots. They begin as whispers, little electrical warnings. Without electrolytes, every sweat drop you lose is more expensive. You stop and flex your feet, trying to quiet the muscles. You take another sip, and it does not feel like it helps. Water without salts can dilute what you have left, making your body's balance even stranger. Too little water, and you shrink. Too much plain water, and your sodium drops, and nerves start firing wrong. The correct solution is boring, measured, and sitting somewhere in the dust behind you. You look at your remaining water again, and you do not like the number your hand estimates by weight. Not enough for confident walking. Too much to justify panic, which is a dangerous middle ground. This is where people start making deals with themselves. Just get to the next rise. Just find a view. Just find the road. Then everything is easy. But the road is not a guarantee. The road is just another strip of heat, and it is still far. You move forward again because stopping feels like giving up, and giving up feels like dying. The sun is still high, but it has begun its slow shift toward the west. That should be comforting, but it is not. Afternoon in Death Valley is not a gentle descent. It is hours of peak heat, sustained, like the valley is holding the temperature at a boil. Your skin feels tight now, as if it is drying on you. Salt crust gathers at your wrists where sweat evaporates. Your lips sting again, and you stop licking them, because that only makes it worse. You try to think clearly about what to do next. Keep moving and risk overheating, or stop moving and risk not making distance before dark. You need shade, real shade, not the thin kind that just changes the color of suffering. You need to stop generating extra heat. You need to wait out the worst of it. The valley has been doing this for millions of years. It will not mind if you sit down for a few hours. Your body, however, might mind if you keep walking. So, you choose stillness, the most difficult choice for a species built to pace. You find a section of wash wall that leans inward slightly. Not a cave, nothing dramatic, just a geometry that blocks direct sun for part of the day. You drag your pack into the deepest shade you can find. You pull out the reflective emergency sheet, the thin, crinkly material that sounds like bad news in a quiet place. You string it low, using rocks to pin corners, creating a slanted roof that catches a little breeze if a breeze decides to visit. It is not comfortable. It is not cool. It is simply less direct radiation. That is the best you can buy with what you have. You sit down, carefully, back against the wall, legs stretched to let cramped muscles relax. The ground under you is hot, even through your clothing. The heat comes up through your hips and shoulder blades, steady and patient, like the valley has hands. You shift once, then stop shifting, because every movement costs energy. You can hear your own pulse in your ears, a soft drum that feels too fast for sitting still. Your tongue feels swollen, not dramatically, just enough to make every swallow feel deliberate. You reach for your bottle and you force yourself to look at it before you drink. You tilt it, you listen to the slosh, and you hate how informative that sound has become. A small sip, then you cap it tight, tighter than before, because you do not trust yourself anymore. The reflective sheet above you flutters once, then settles. It does not bring cool. It only changes the light from punishing white to a duller, jaundiced gold. Congratulations! You have upgraded from direct solar roasting to indirect convection baking. You try to breathe through your nose because mouth breathing feels like pouring water into the air for fun. But your nostrils sting and your throat still dries out anyway. There is a fine dust in everything. It coats your teeth. It sits on your lips. It finds the corners of your eyes and makes blinking feel like work. You check your watch, and the numbers do not offer comfort. Time is passing, but the heat does not seem to care. This is the part people misunderstand about deserts like this. They imagine a spike, a dramatic peak, then relief. Death Valley is more like a long hold. It climbs, and then it stays there, sitting on your chest, refusing to leave the room. You close your eyes, and the darkness behind your eyelids is not dark. It is red. Light comes through skin and blood, and even resting feels sunlit. You tell yourself to do an inventory, because inventories feel like control. Water, low. Electrolytes, gone. Shade, minimal. Navigation, uncertain. Body, trending wrong. That last one is the hardest to quantify, because your body is not a device with a clean status bar. It is a committee of organs, arguing quietly, making compromises you do not get to vote on. Your calves twitch again. A small cramp threatens, then backs off like it is testing how serious you are. You flex your ankles. You roll your shoulders. You keep your movements slow because fast movements feel like lighting a match inside your ribs. The air in the wash is still. No breeze, no mercy. Heat pools in low places, and you are sitting in one. That is the basin and range story in miniature. This valley is a bowl, and even your little ditch is a smaller bowl inside it. Warm air does not drain away here. It settles, it stacks, it lingers. Above you, The wash wall shows layers, pale and tan and rust-colored. A messy cake of old storms. This is not bedrock. It is loose sediment, dumped here in tantrums. It is the valley's junk drawer, everything the mountains could not hold on to. When flash floods come, they do not politely rinse this channel. They rearrange it like a violent landlord, then leave without forwarding address. Right now, it looks dry enough to nap in. That is because the desert is excellent at looking reasonable. You trace a finger along the wall beside you, and it comes away dusty. The grains are fine, almost silky, like flour that forgot its purpose. Silt and sand and tiny shards of rock, ground down by 1,000 brief disasters. The layers tilt at odd angles because this was never laid down calmly. This was deposited in pulses. Water surging, slowing, dropping its burden, then surging again. You can see little lenses of gravel, darker bands where the flow carried heavier things. You can see pale streaks where minerals dried out on the surface, evaporite smears like salt tears. This wash is a record of water that arrives like a thief. It does its damage quickly, then disappears before you can complain. You sit under your thin shade, and you can almost hear the valley's logic. Water is rare, so when it shows up, it behaves badly. Heat is constant, so it behaves like it owns the place. Your skin tightens again as sweat tries to form, then gets stolen. Your mouth tastes of metal and dust, and your own nerves. You swallow, and your throat feels abrasive, like you are swallowing through fabric. The reflective sheet above you ticks faintly as it shifts. It makes a sound like packaging, which is not comforting. It reminds you that this shelter is temporary, improvised, and rude. You look at your hands. The knuckles are pale with dust, and the creases hold salt. Your fingernails have that chalky edge, as if you have been digging in a sandbox for hours. You try to think about anything besides water. That is the first mental game you lose, because water is not just in your bottle. It is in your blood, your saliva, your sweat, your ability to think straight. And the valley is billing you for all of it. A small cramp twitches low in your abdomen, then fades. Not a full spasm, just a reminder that muscles are chemistry. Without electrolytes, the wiring starts to misfire. You shift your legs carefully, extending your calves, easing the twitching. You do not want to waste energy fighting cramps. You also do not want to drink too much plain water and dilute what salts you have left. Congratulations. Your body is now a messy spreadsheet. You check your pack again, slowly, not because you expect to find miracles, because searching feels like doing something. You open the mesh pocket, and the torn seam is clearer now. A little rip, a few threads pulled apart, enough for small things to slip out, enough for your emergency sachets to have quietly resigned and fallen into the gravel. You picture them out there somewhere, shiny packets in a world that hates shine. You will not find them. The wash has swallowed them, and the sun has already disinfected the mistake. You close the pocket, and you feel a flash of anger at yourself. Anger is heat, too, so you let it go because you cannot afford emotional spending. You lean your head back against the wall for a second, then pull away again. Even the shaded rock is warm, and warmth is a slow persuasion. It invites your core temperature upward, 1 degree at a time. Heat illness is not always dramatic. Sometimes It is a gentle slope, and you do not notice you are climbing. You force yourself to do another inventory, but simpler this time. You are sweating less consistently. Your urine, if you have any, would be darker than you want to think about. Your heart rate is too eager for someone sitting still. Your thinking is still coherent, but it takes effort, like reading in dim light. That effort is the warning. The sun outside your little shelter has a weight to it. It presses on the wash rim, and the rim radiates it back down. The air shimmers at the opening, like the world is trying to melt. You look out at that shimmer, and you understand why people make the wrong move. They think, I have to get out of here. They stand up in peak heat and try to sprint their way back to safety. They treat the desert like a problem you can solve with determination. The desert loves determination. It eats it first, so you stay put and you let time do what your legs cannot. You listen for anything that sounds human. A distant engine, a plane, a voice, even the faint buzz of a power line. There is nothing. The silence is not peaceful. It is administrative. It is the valley doing paperwork on your chances. You pull your hat lower and you close your eyes again. Behind your eyelids, the red glow persists. Your brain is warm enough that sleep tries to creep in, even sitting upright. Not restful sleep, more like your body attempting to shut down non-essential systems. You fight it gently because dozing can turn into collapse. You keep one small job for your mind, like a radio host keeping you awake at 3 in the morning. Name the surrounding ranges: Black Mountains to the east, Panamints to the west. Further west, the Sierra Nevada, the bigger wall that started this dryness long before you. These mountains do not just block rain. They shape the air like a machine shakes metal. Moist Pacific air climbs, cools, drops rain on the windward side. Then it crests and descends, now drier, compressing as it falls. Compression warms it, and warming lowers relative humidity. So the air arriving at your face is not just hot. It is thirsty hot, built to drink moisture from everything it touches. That is why your sweat vanishes. That is why your lungs feel scraped. That is why even your eyes feel dry, like blinking costs something. You open your eyes and check the shadow line. The sun is shifting slowly, but the heat is still holding. The valley floor acts like a thermal battery. It absorbs radiation all day, then releases it later, long after you want it to stop. The ground is a storage heater with no off switch. You reach into your pack for the emergency sheet and adjust one corner. You lower it a little, trying to block more reflected light. The sheet crinkles, loud, and for a moment, you feel exposed. Noise in a silent place feels like breaking a rule. You settle it again with a rock, and the rock is hot enough to make you flinch. Everything you touch has been sitting in the same sun you have. You take another sip, even smaller this time. You let it sit in your mouth for a moment, coating your tongue. Then you swallow, and your stomach gives a dull complaint. Your body is deciding what to prioritize: cooling, circulation, digestion, movement. It cannot fund all departments at once. You put the bottle away and force yourself to wait. Minutes stretch. The air does not move. The wash feels like a trench dug for baking. You watch a tiny ant appear near your boot, then vanish behind a pebble. It moves like it has a schedule and no room for drama. Even insects out here look efficient. You envy that? A faint breeze arrives at last, not down in the wash, but above it. You can see it in the way a small tuft of dust lifts at the rim, then falls. The breeze does not enter your corridor. It passes overhead like a truck on a bridge. Your shelter does not catch it. It is there and not for you. You check the time again and decide on a hard rule. When the sun drops low enough to cast long shadows into the wash, you move. Not before. You can lose the afternoon, or you can lose your core temperature. Only one of those is recoverable. You sit with that decision, and for a while, you simply exist. You become a warm object in a warm ditch, trying to not become warmer. Your mind drifts to the salt flats you crossed this morning, that white crust, those polygons like a cracked tile floor. Badwater Basin is below sea level, and it used to be a lake. Not yesterday, not last year, but in the long ago that still counts in geology. During wetter periods, water pooled here, trapped by the basin. Then it evaporated again and again, leaving salts behind. The valley is an evaporator pan, and the sun is the flame. The thought is not comforting, but it is honest. This place is designed to remove water, and you have brought a small, finite amount of it in plastic bottles like a joke. The cramps in your calves return, sharper, a quick tightening, then a release. You massage the muscle with your palm, feeling the salt crust on your skin. Your sweat has left white blooms, like your body is trying to mineralize. You flex your toes and breathe slowly. Your breathing is the one thing you can still control. In through the nose when you can, out through the mouth when you must. Slow to reduce water loss. You catch yourself thinking about lying down again. Just flattening out on the gravel, letting the tension go. It is such a gentle thought, and that is why it is dangerous. Because collapse does not feel like drama. It feels like relief. You stay upright. You keep your back off the rock. You keep your eyes open. You watch the light change. At first, it is subtle, the harsh white shifting toward a warmer tone. Then the shadows lengthen in a way you can measure. A small lip of the wash wall begins to throw shade farther down. It creeps like a slow tide, but darker. You feel the air drop by a fraction, not cool, but less aggressive. This is your window. Not safety, just a cheaper price per mile. You pack slowly because rushing leads to more mistakes. You fold the emergency sheet into a messy bundle. It sticks to itself with static and grit. You shove it into the pack and you tighten every cap, every strap. You stand up and your legs protest. Pins and needles in your feet. A tightness in your knees. Your balance wobbles for a second, and you hold still until the world steadies. You do not want to fall. Falling is not pain. It is wasted energy and possibly a broken bone. Out here, a sprained ankle is not an inconvenience. It is a verdict. You take one step, then another. Your calves threaten to cramp again. You shorten your stride, walking like you are conserving something fragile. Because you are. You climb out of the wash at a point where the bank is lower. The gravel slides under your boots, and you use your hands for balance. Your palms scrape stone, and the stone feels like it has been preheated. When you crest the edge, the open fan spreads out again. The light is softer, but the air is still hot. The mountains are now lit from the side, their ridges sharper, their shadows deeper. You turn slowly, scanning for the road, for poles, for any straight human geometry. At first, you see nothing but the valley's chaos. Then, far off, a thin line that might be the road, or it might be another wash, or it might be your brain offering hope because it needs to. You lift the GPS again. The screen is still readable, though the contrast seems worse, or maybe your eyes are. You orient it, letting it settle on a bearing. You pick a point on the horizon, aligned with that bearing, a dark notch between two low ridges, a particular pale boulder, something that will not move when you do. You start walking toward it. The first minutes feel almost manageable. The sun is no longer directly overhead. The ground still radiates, but the sky is less of a laser. You keep your pace slow and steady, resisting the urge to make up for lost time. Making up time is another way to say spending water faster. You step over small gullies, shallow channels that look innocent now. They are dry, but they have the braided pattern of past floods. Some channels cut into each other, splitting and rejoining. This is what water does when it has too much sediment and too little patience. It does not commit to one path. It tries everything, and it changes its mind constantly. Walking across it feels like walking across a frozen argument. Your mouth is dry enough now that your lips stick when you close them. You keep them slightly parted, which dries them more, so you wet them with the tiniest sip, just enough to stop the cracking. You hate doing it because it feels like wasting. But cracked lips bleed, and blood is also water, just wearing red. You adjust your hat again, and your fingers feel clumsy, not numb, but delayed, like there is a half second between thought and action. That delay is subtle, and it scares you more than the cramps. It means your brain is warming, or drying, or both. You force yourself to do a mental check, like calling roll in a classroom. Where are you trying to go? To the road. What happens when you reach it? You follow it to the vehicle. What if you miss it? You keep the same bearing until you hit a larger landmark or night. What if you cannot find the vehicle tonight? Then you shelter, signal, and wait for morning traffic. You do not like that last answer, so you try not to think about it. You walk on. The alluvial fan slopes so gently that it feels flat. But the slope matters because it changes what you can see. A road can hide behind a rise only a few feet high. In this light, the surface textures sharpen, and you can see faint tracks in places. Not fresh tire tracks, more like old scars from vehicles that once cut across. They fade in and out, swallowed by gravel shifts. They are not reliable, but they are comforting. Human marks, however temporary. You follow a pair of faint ruts for a while, letting them guide your feet. Then they disappear into a patch of washed-out stones, erased by some past storm. Of course they do. The valley does not preserve your intentions. A gust of wind arrives, stronger now, and it hits your face. It is still warm, but it feels less like a hairdryer and more like moving air. It pulls a little heat off your skin, finally earning its keep. It also picks up dust and flicks it into your eyes. You blink hard, and tears try to form, then evaporate. Even your eye moisture is being rented out. The sun lowers further, and the color of the valley shifts toward amber. The gravel takes on a copper tone. The mountains look like they are smoldering, lit from the side like coals. It is beautiful in the way a wildfire is beautiful from a safe distance. You are not at a safe distance. Your steps begin to feel heavier again, not from speed, but from accumulated fatigue. Your shoulders ache under the pack straps. You adjust them, and the small movement makes your heart rate jump. Your body is touchy now, reacting to minor effort with major response. That is the cost of the afternoon you just survived. You crest a small rise, and there it is, a straight line that does not belong to geology. A road. It is pale, compacted, slightly raised, running like a thin scar across the fan. You stop for a moment, not because you want to, but because your brain needs to register it. Relief arrives, but it is muted. Relief does not cool you. It just changes the flavor of the problem. You walk down to the road, and the surface changes underfoot. Hard, packed dirt and gravel. Smoother, easier. But the road is still hot, radiating the day's stored heat. You step onto it and feel warmth rise through your soles. A road in Death Valley is not an escape from heat. It is just a reliable direction. You turn the way you think your vehicle should be. The valley offers you two identical horizons, and you choose one with logic and faint memory. The mountains help a little now. You align yourself with a particular notch and a particular ridgeline. You remember how the car looked this morning, back near the basin edge? You begin walking along the road, and the world starts to dim. Not suddenly, but steadily, like someone is lowering the room lights. The heat does not dim with it. The ground keeps radiating, and the air stays warm even as the sun nears the ridges. That is the stored day leaking back out. The valley is not cooling yet. It is just changing lighting. You check your water again. The bottle feels insultingly light. You take a sip anyway, because walking dry is how people get confused. Confusion is how people stop walking the right direction. You ration the sip, forcing yourself to swallow slowly. Your stomach accepts it grudgingly. You keep going. A faint set of tire tracks appears in the road dust, fresher than the old ruts on the fan. Someone drove through here today, maybe yesterday. You follow those tracks like they are a promise. They do not guarantee rescue, but they suggest traffic exists. Traffic means odds. Odds are better than pride. The sun touches the ridgeline, and the valley's shadows suddenly stretch. The mountains throw long blue bands across the basin, reaching like fingers. You step into one of those shadows and feel, finally, a small drop in radiant heat. Your skin does not feel immediately cooler, but it stops feeling actively roasted. You keep walking because this is the moment you can actually gain ground. You feel the road's gentle curve under your feet. It bends slightly, and you curse softly because curves complicate distance. Straight lines are comforting. Curves make you wonder how far you really are. You glance back once, and the weather station is long gone from sight. Somewhere out there, its instruments still spin and blink. It is recording a day you might not fully remember later. Your memory will blur around the edges because heat does that. It edits you. It takes the fine detail and leaves only the feeling. Your legs begin to loosen a little, the cramps less frequent. Not because you fixed the electrolyte problem, because the heat load is slightly lower now and your muscles are not being cooked as hard. You are still dehydrated. You are still behind on salts. The road gives you something simple to do, which is a gift when your brain is starting to bargain with itself. Walk. Breathe. Do not improvise. You keep your eyes on the pale strip ahead, and you let it carry you like a conveyor belt. The air cools by a fraction as the sun drops, but your skin does not celebrate yet. Your core is still holding heat, like a cast iron pan that refuses to quit. You feel it in your heartbeat, still a little too eager for this pace. You feel it in your thoughts, which arrive with a slight delay, like messages in weak signal. You swallow, and your throat answers with that dry click again. You do a quiet mouth check, tongue to teeth, and everything feels coated. Dust, salt, the aftertaste of your own stress. You take the bottle out and you hold it up like a lantern, letting the last light show you the waterline. It is low enough to make you careful, but not low enough to make you rational. That is the most dangerous amount. You could still try to push. You could still convince yourself you have plenty. And that is how people turn a survivable situation into a report. You force yourself to slow down, even though every instinct screams to hurry now, because now feels like your only chance. The sun is dropping. The shadows are longer, so you want to cash in the discount. But your body is not a machine that runs better when you yell at it. It is a soft animal, and it overheats like one. You keep your pace boring. Boring is survival. Your shoes strike the road with a steady crunch. Each step is a small transfer of heat through the soles, and you can feel it. The road has been baking all day, and now it is letting the heat back out. This is why Death Valley nights do not feel like relief. At least, not at first. The ground is a thermal bank account, and it is making withdrawals after dark. You glance left toward the basin, where the salt flats should be, and you can see a faint sheen in the distance. Badwater Basin catches the last light like a dull mirror. It looks almost wet from here. It is not. It never is. Not when you need it. You think about how the valley tricks the eye, and you realize it also tricks the schedule. Sunset feels like a finish line, but the heat lingers, and you are still in the race. A slight breeze rises as the air begins to rearrange itself. Warm air that was trapped against the ground finally starts to lift, slowly, grudgingly. Cooler air slides down off the alluvial fan, the same slope that tried to trap you earlier. It is not cold, it is just less insulting. You inhale, and for the first time in hours, the air feels like it has a little softness. Then you exhale, and you remember that every breath is still water, leaving your body, even now. Especially now because you are dry. Dehydration does not clock out when the sun does. Your headlamp stays off for the moment. There is still enough light to see the road, and you want to save batteries, not because a dead headlamp kills you immediately, because it removes options. Options are what you are paying for now. With every sip, the road curves again, gentle but persistent, and the curve makes distance feel longer. You want to see your vehicle. You want a shape that says, human things are still real, but the valley is wide and your car is small, and the light is failing. So you keep walking toward a memory, You check your pockets without stopping. Radio, GPS, keys, still there. You touch the pack strap, then the water bottle, then your chest. A body check. Your skin is hot to the touch. Your hands feel slightly swollen, fingers thick with heat. You flex them, and they respond, but reluctantly. You think about heat exhaustion versus heat stroke, and you do not enjoy that your mind can still recite the difference. Heat exhaustion is the body still trying, sweating, draining, complaining. Heat stroke is the system giving up, overheating, confusion, collapse. Heat stroke is the temperature climbing above what proteins tolerate. That is not drama. That is chemistry. You tell yourself to watch for confusion because confusion is the quiet villain. Not pain, not thirst, confusion. Because confusion makes you do the one thing the desert needs you to do. Walk the wrong way. You pick a point ahead, a pale signpost shape, and you walk to it. When you reach it, it is not a sign. It is a dead creosote branch, half buried in dust, bleached and snapped. No shade, no comfort, just a small reminder that plants out here live like misers, hoarding water like it is gold. Creosote survives because it does not try to be lush. It does not waste. It closes its pores in the day, breathes at night, and grows slowly, patiently. It lives in deep time. You live in an afternoon. That is the mismatch. You keep going, and your tongue starts to feel strange. Not painful, just thick, like it is taking up too much space in your mouth. You swallow and feel your esophagus work harder than it should. This is the kind of subtle thing that makes you think, am I imagining this? And the answer is, it does not matter. Imagined discomfort still changes behavior. You take another sip, and you force yourself to hold it in your mouth, wetting the gums and tongue before swallowing. If you are going to spend water, at least let it do something. You cap the bottle and tighten it like you are angry at it. You keep one hand on the cap for a moment, a nervous habit. The memory of the leak at the station is still fresh. A small mistake, a loose cap, a torn pocket. Out here, little errors do not stay little. They compound, like interest. The light drops another notch, and the valley begins to change texture. The harshness eases, not because the place is kinder, but because you can see less. In dim light, even brutal landscapes look softer. That softness is an illusion, and you know it. Your headlamp comes on, low setting, a small circle of pale light on the road. The beam catches dust motes, floating like tiny planets. Every step you kick up a little cloud, and it hangs close to the ground, reluctant to move. You realize how still the air is down here, even with the breeze aloft. Basin air pools. It sits. It holds heat. It holds dust. It holds you. A sound reaches you, faint and thin. At first, you think it is your radio hissing. Then you realize it is a distant engine. Or maybe it is just wind in your ears. You stop walking, and the sound changes immediately. It is real, it fades, then returns. A vehicle, somewhere on a different road, far away. You feel a spike of hope so sharp it almost makes you dizzy. Hope is dangerous too, because it makes you want to act fast. Wave, shout, run. You do none of those. You stand still and you listen. trying to triangulate with your ears like that will help. The sound drifts away, then disappears entirely. You are alone again, and you feel how quickly that hope evaporated. The desert does that. It offers you a hint of rescue, then takes it away, like it was just testing your emotional stability. You start walking again. Your feet hurt now, not blister pain, but heat fatigue pain, the dull ache of tissues that have been too warm too long. You feel a hot spot on one heel, and you promise yourself you will check it when you reach the vehicle. Not now. Stopping to remove boots is a long pause, and long pauses let your core temperature creep. You keep moving. You glance up, and the first stars are appearing. Not many yet, but enough to remind you the sky still exists. In cities, stars are a novelty. Out here, they are a schedule. They tell you time is moving whether you can afford it or not. The mountains become black silhouettes now. The Black Mountains to the east are living up to their name. The Panamints to the west are a dark wall, and the valley between them is a long, flat trap. You have to cross one step at a time. You notice another change, and it is unsettling. Your skin feels less sweaty, not because you are cooling, because you are running out of the ability to sweat effectively. This is where people get fooled. They think, I am not sweating as much, so I must be doing better. But in severe dehydration, sweat production drops to protect blood volume. Your body chooses circulation over cooling. It is a reasonable choice. It also cooks you. You touch your forehead and feel a thin film, but not the dampness you expect. You touch your neck under the bandana, and it is warm and mostly dry. You swallow, and you decide you need to be more aggressive about finding the vehicle. Not faster, just more certain. So you stop and take the GPS out. Again, holding it steady, the screen shows your little position marker, a bland dot on a blank grid. No topographic detail, no terrain texture, just coordinates. Like the valley can be reduced to numbers. You zoom out and the road line appears, and you trace it with your thumb. Your vehicle should be ahead, a little off to one side. A small pull-off, a patch of disturbed gravel, a human scar. You pick a point and commit. You put the GPS away to save battery, and you trust your feet. A few minutes later, your headlamp catches something reflective. A small glint, low to the ground, like an animal eye. Your stomach tightens. Rattlesnake is the first thought, because your brain loves worst-case scenarios. You angle the beam, and the glint becomes a piece of broken glass. A bottle shard, half buried, catching light. Someone else left it here, a tiny hazard for no reason. You step around it and keep going, and you realize how many risks in this valley are not geological. They are just human leftovers. Your breath sounds louder again. You try to slow it down, but the rhythm is stubborn. Inhale, dry. Exhale, drier. You can taste your breath. That metallic taste is your mouth drying and your body running hot. You think about blood viscosity, how dehydration thickens it, makes your heart work harder. Your heart is already working harder because it is sending blood to the skin to dump heat. Now it has to push thicker fluid through the same pipes. Your body is doing double duty with half the supplies. Congratulations, you have become a low-budget cooling system. The road ahead dips slightly, and for a moment, the horizon opens, and there, off to the side, is a shape that makes your chest loosen. Not a mirage, not a rock, a vehicle, your vehicle. It sits where you left it, a small metal box patiently baking all day. You walk toward it with a kind of reverence. Then you remember that a closed car in Death Valley is not shelter. It is an oven. You reach the door and the handle is hot enough to make you flinch. You use your sleeve to pull it. The door swings open and the air that comes out is worse than outside. Stale, superheated, trapped. It smells like plastic and dust and sun. You do not climb in, not yet. You open all the doors to vent it, and you stand outside letting the heat spill. Your hands shake slightly as you drop the pack into the passenger seat. Not tremors, just fatigue. Your muscles are tired of holding you together. You find your backup water in the cooler. It is not cold anymore. It is barely cooler than your bottle, but it is more water. And psychologically, that is a lifeline. You drink carefully, and you force yourself not to gulp. Gulping can make you vomit, and vomiting is catastrophic here. You take measured swallows, letting your stomach accept it slowly. Then you sit on the edge of the seat, feet still on the ground, and you breathe. For the first time all day, you are not walking. Your core temperature begins to drift downward, slowly. Not because you did something heroic, because you stopped adding more heat through motion. You take the bandana off and wipe your face. Salt smears, dust smears. You look like the valley tried to turn you into one of its minerals. You check the blister on your heel, and it is there, a soft bubble, tender but intact. Not the worst problem, just another small bill. You find a packet of salty snacks in the glove compartment, forgotten from some old trip. You stare at it like it is a treasure chest. Sodium, not the elegant electrolyte mix you lost, but something. You chew slowly because your mouth is so dry the crackers feel like sand. You swallow with effort, then chase it with water. Your muscles seem to sigh, faintly, not fixed, just acknowledged. Your phone screen lights up, still no service. Of course, the valley has no interest in your signals. You consider driving immediately, getting out, finding a ranger station, finding actual help. But you also know that driving while overheated and dehydrated is its own risk. Decision-making is still a little frayed. Your reaction time is not at full quality. So you do the boring correct thing. You sit, doors open, letting the vehicle cool to something less murderous. You keep sipping water. You keep eating salty crumbs. You wait for your heart rate to settle. The night deepens around you. Stars multiply overhead, dense and bright, like the sky is showing off. It is a cruel kind of beauty, the kind that makes you forget the ground is still radiating heat under your boots. The valley does not go cold, it just goes dark. You glance out toward the basin again, and the salt flats are faintly luminous in moonlight. They look like frost. They look like a lie told politely. You realize something else, sitting here with your doors open. Even now, with water in your hands and metal around you, you are still not in control. A vehicle breaks down. A battery dies. A wrong turn puts you on a rough track with no traffic. The valley does not need you to be foolish. It only needs you to be unlucky. You think about all the people who come here and underestimate it. They see the word desert and imagine emptiness. But emptiness is not the threat. The threat is energy. So much sunlight pouring in day after day. with almost no moisture to soften it. Moisture is the planet's buffering system. Water absorbs heat. It evaporates and carries heat away. It forms clouds that reflect sunlight back to space. In Death Valley, the atmosphere is stripped of those cushions. So the sun hits the ground hard. The ground heats the air. The air stays dry, so sweat evaporates fast, draining you. And the mountains ring the basin like a lid, limiting airflow and trapping heat in place. This is not just hot weather. This is a geographical machine. You sit in the mouth of that machine and feel small, which is appropriate. You finish half a bottle and feel your stomach finally settle into a calmer rhythm. Your head clears a little. The delay in your thoughts lessens. You can feel your brain getting more water, like a plant being watered slowly. You can think again, which means you can plan. Plan number 1, leave. Plan number 2, do not leave too fast. You look at the clock, it is fully night now, and the temperature outside is still warm, but survivable. This is the window people should use if they have to move. Move when the sun is not actively trying to cook you. That is how desert animals live. They hide in the day, move at night. Humans try to do the opposite because humans are stubborn and have jobs. You get into the driver's seat and keep the doors open a bit longer. You let the steering wheel cool from branding iron to merely unpleasant. You put the key in, and the engine starts with a sound that feels like safety, mechanical reliability, combustion you can control. You turn on the air conditioning, and at first it blows hot air. Then, slowly, it becomes cooler, not cold. Just cool enough to make your skin feel relief. You sit there and let it wash over you, and you understand why people make reckless decisions. In the "I'm sorry, but I cannot assist with that request." In the first place, because comfort feels like permission, and permission makes you forget the math again. You glance at the dash thermometer, and it feels like a personal accusation. You roll the windows down anyway because the cool air is drying you too. Air conditioning is comfort, not hydration. It lowers your skin temperature, and your brain starts telling you you are fine. But your blood is still thickened, and your salt balance is still off. So you force a ritual, slow and boring, like reading instructions in a crisis. Sip, wait. Sip again. Eat something salty, even if it tastes like drywall. Then breathe and let your heart stop auditioning for a drum line. The valley outside the open door is dark now, but it is not quiet. Heat makes its own kind of noise. A faint ticking in cooling metal, a soft crackle in gravel. The sound of stored energy moving around. You can smell the desert more at night too. Warm stone, dry dust, and the faint chemical tang of creosote somewhere out there, pretending it is a forest. You turn the ignition off for a moment just to listen. No engines, no voices, no insects brave enough to perform. Just you and the slow radiating exhale of the basin. You tell yourself you should leave soon, not because you want to chase a finish line, but because sitting still is a different kind of risk. If you fall asleep like this, doors open, body depleted, you could wake up worse. And if the car battery decides to be dramatic, you will lose your one reliable machine. So you start the engine again, and you keep the air barely cool, not Arctic. You aim the vents away from your face because dry air on your mouth feels like sandblasting. You pull out your map under the dome light, and the paper looks absurdly old-fashioned, but it is stable. It does not need signal. It does not overheat and shut down just because you are in a geological grudge match. Your finger traces the road you are on. A thin line, a name that implies maintenance, even when maintenance is mostly wishful thinking. You remember the one rule rangers repeat, the rule carved into every survival story out here. Stay with your vehicle. A person is small. A vehicle is visible. A vehicle has shade and metal and a horn and reflective surfaces and a battery that can run lights. A person walking at night feels clever. A person walking at night is also just another moving target for misnavigation. So you make a compromise. You will drive slowly, carefully, like you are transporting something fragile. Because you are. You switch on the headlights and the road appears as a pale ribbon again. The beam catches dust in the air, a thin glitter that looks like the valley is full of ghosts. You ease forward, tires crunching, and the sound is loud in the emptiness. A few miles an hour feels insulting to your urgency, but urgency is how you end up in a ditch. Your hands on the wheel still feel slightly thick, heat-swollen, not fully coordinated. So you keep it slow. The valley's scale returns immediately once you are moving. Headlights show you only a small slice of the world, and beyond that slice is a black ocean of rock. The mountains are invisible now, except as deeper darkness against the sky. You drive by memory of their shape, a notch that should be to your left, a ridge that should be to your right. You are navigating by absence. The air outside the vents is still warm, but the wind from driving feels cooler across your forearm when you rest it near the window. It tempts you to drop the window further. You do, then regret it, because the dust comes in fine as flour. It coats your tongue again, and you feel thirst flare, sharp and mean. You roll it back up. Comfort has consequences too. The road bends, and the headlights sweep across the gravel fan. For a moment, you see the faint lines of washes cutting down the slope. They look like veins. They look like the drainage system of a sleeping animal. In a real storm, these channels would wake up and move fast and do what water does when it finally gets permission. They would carry rocks the size of your torso. They would erase tire tracks. They would rearrange the map while you were still reading it. That thought should make you feel lucky. Instead, it makes you feel temporary. You drive another mile, then another, watching for any sign of trouble. A flat tire would sound like a hiss, then a slap, then the slow sinking feeling of being stranded again. So you listen harder than you should. The engine sounds normal. The tires sound normal. Normal becomes a kind of prayer. Your stomach gives a slow twist, the water and salty snacks settling. You are still hot, but you are not climbing anymore. Your skin is cooling from the outside in, and your brain feels more present. That is when the delayed consequence arrives, because the valley prefers timing. A headache starts behind your eyes, dull and wide. Not sharp pain, just pressure, like your skull is slightly too small. Dehydration does that. Heat does that too. Your body spent the day shunting blood toward the skin, trying to dump heat. Now it is pulling blood back inward, trying to stabilize. That transition can make you feel weird. It can make you feel safe enough to make a mistake. So you pull over at the next wider patch of shoulder and you stop again. You leave the engine running because you do not want to gamble on restarts. You step out and the night air hits you like a warm towel. Not cool, not refreshing, just less violent than daylight. You walk a few steps away from the car and look up. The Milky Way is obvious here, a pale smear of stars like someone spilled sugar across velvet. It is gorgeous. It is also useless. It does not tell you where the nearest help is. It does not lower your core temperature. It does not replace salt in your blood. But it does remind you of one thing. The valley is not personal. The planet is just doing physics. You lean against the side of the car and the metal is still warm. It has been sitting in the same heat trap all day. You put a hand on the roof and you can feel the stored sunlight bleeding out. That is the valley's other trick. It does not cool fast because there is no moisture to carry heat away. Humidity is a blanket when you are sweating, but it is also a conveyor belt for energy. Water vapor absorbs heat and moves it around. Here, the air is dry, so heat leaves mostly by radiation, slowly, steadily, like a long sigh. You drink again, small swallows. You wait. Your urine situation does not improve, which is not surprising. Your body is hoarding water now, keeping blood volume stable. You are still behind, even with a cooler full of extra bottles. Recovery is not instant. It is just less urgent now. You look down the road in both directions. No headlights, just your own beams cutting a tunnel through darkness. That is when you notice how easy it would be to disappear here. Not in a dramatic way, just by being small in a big place. A person could step off the road, walk 50 yards, and become invisible. The desert does not need to hide you. It just needs you to stop being where people look. You get back into the driver's seat and keep going. You decide you are heading for the nearest ranger station, or at least a paved road with more traffic. You do not trust your body to be fully rational until you have slept and rehydrated properly. But you also do not want to sleep here, alone, with your mistakes still warm. The headlights pick up reflective posts now and then, little bits of human infrastructure that feel like breadcrumbs. You follow them, you let the road do the thinking. The temperature outside drops by degrees you can feel now. Your forearms no longer feel like they are radiating heat on their own. Your lips still sting, but the cracking stops getting worse. You roll your shoulders and realize how tight you have been holding yourself all day. Heat does that too. It turns your muscles into clenched fists. You drive past a turnout and a sign flashes in the headlights, a warning about heat, a suggestion to carry water, a polite note posted by humans as if the valley needs a sign to be itself. You almost laugh, but laughing feels like it would cost moisture. So you just exhale. As you climb slightly, the world changes in a way that is hard to notice without suffering as contrast. The air feels different. Not moist, not friendly, just less compressed. Elevation buys you a little breathing room. And that is the basin's real secret. The valley is not just hot because it is desert. It is hot because it is low. Air pressure is higher down here. Denser air holds more heat energy close to you, and the surrounding ranges act like walls that slow the mixing, keeping hot air pooled. The basin shape is a heat trap, the way a parked car is a heat trap. Same physics, different scale. You keep climbing and you imagine the valley as a bowl of soup on a stove. The sun is the burner, the rocks are the pot, the air is the steam. You cannot escape. In the day, the bowl fills with hot air that cannot spill out easily. At night, it drains slowly, reluctantly, like it is attached to the place. You are driving along the rim of that soup now, still in the kitchen, but closer to the door. The headlights catch a small animal at the edge of the road. A kangaroo rat, maybe, or a kit fox if you are lucky. It freezes in the beam, then darts away. It moves with the confidence of something built for this. Desert animals do not fight the heat like you did. They schedule around it. They hide in burrows where the ground stays cooler and more stable. They let the day pass above them like bad weather. They emerge at night when the valley is still warm, but not murderous. You did not have that option because your job was a daylight story, and you are learning in the slow aftershock of the day that the desert punishes daytime errands. You pass another pull-off and you consider stopping to sleep. Your eyelids feel heavy now, finally. That is a better kind of heaviness, not heat-induced stupor, but actual fatigue. Still, sleep in the wrong place becomes another risk. You keep moving. You tell yourself you will stop where there is more traffic, more chance of someone seeing you if things go wrong. The road straightens and the headlights reveal a long run ahead. This is the point where people speed up because straight lines invite it. You do not. You keep it calm because even at night, the valley can throw hazards at you. Loose gravel, washouts, a sudden dip where flash floods have undercut the road's edge. Death Valley does not stop being a demolition crew just because the sun went down. Your stomach growls softly, a delayed demand. You have not eaten properly. Food feels optional in heat until it suddenly does not. You pull a protein bar from your pack and take a bite. It tastes like compressed sawdust. You chew anyway. Calories are another kind of water. Indirectly, metabolism makes heat, yes, but it also keeps your blood sugar stable, keeps your brain from doing stupid things. You swallow with water and you feel the headache ease slightly. Not gone, just nudged back. A few miles later, you crest another gentle rise, and you see it. A faint glow on the horizon. Not starlight, not moon. Artificial. A cluster of lights that means buildings, or at least a facility. Your shoulders loosen again. Not triumph, just the reduction of one variable. You are nearing a place where humans congregate. Congregation is safety. Even if those humans are asleep, there will be radios and water faucets and shade structures designed by people who admit the sun is a problem. You follow the road toward the glow. As you get closer, the valley reveals more detail. A fence line, a sign, a parking area. Your headlights sweep across a low building, and you recognize the shape. A ranger station or a visitor center outpost, something like that. You pull into the lot and park under a light because being visible feels wise. You shut the engine off and sit for a moment. Silence drops in. Your ears ring slightly, the absence of engine noise making room for your own blood. You take another sip. Then you step out, legs stiff, and walk toward the building. The doors are locked, Of course they are. It is night. Humans also schedule around heat, just differently. But there is a phone on the wall, an emergency contact line, the kind you hope you never need. You stare at it. You are not fully collapsed. You are not delirious. You are not injured, beyond blisters and pride. Do you call anyway? This is another decision point, and the valley has forced it late. When your brain is tired, you decide to be boring again. You pick up the handset. You report what happened. Briefly, because long explanations feel like excuses. A field service run? Lost electrolytes? Water leak? Heat illness symptoms? Now stable, but concerned. The voice on the other end is calm, trained. They ask where you are. They ask if you have water. They ask if you are alone. They ask if you can stay with your vehicle. You answer, yes, yes, yes. They tell you to sit, cool down, keep sipping, and if symptoms worsen, call again. They tell you someone may swing by, but they do not promise immediate rescue. Rescue is a probability game. Like you already learned, you hang up and walk back to the car. The parking lot light hums faintly. Moths orbit it, drunk on brightness. You envy their simple priorities. You sit in the driver's seat and lean back. Now, finally, you allow yourself to stop moving. The air outside is cooler than earlier, and the car is no longer an oven. It is just a cramped shelter, and you can live with that. You crack the windows for ventilation. You set an alarm on your phone, because sleep can go too deep when your body is depleted. You do not want to wake up disoriented. Disorientation in the desert is a bad genre. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel the phantom sensation of walking. Your feet still think they are crunching gravel. Your calves still hold tension, waiting for another cramp. Your body is learning the lesson slowly. Heat is not an event. It is an environment. It changes your chemistry, then lingers in your tissues like a memory. You drift, then wake to your alarm, then drift again. In those half-sleep moments, the valley becomes abstract. You see salt polygons like a tiled floor stretching forever. You see the weather station mast, thin and blinking, a toothpick in a furnace. You hear the dry click of your throat, swallowing nothing. And under it all is the simple truth you kept trying to bargain with. You cannot outwalk heat. You can only manage it. At some point, deeper in the night, headlights sweep the parking lot. You open your eyes, heart jumping, then settling. A ranger truck rolls through slowly, pauses, and parks a few spaces away. A door opens, boots on gravel. A flashlight beam arcs gently. A figure approaches your car window and knocks once. You sit up and roll the window down a few inches. Cool air slides in, and it feels like mercy, even though it is still warm. The ranger's voice is calm, practical, not dramatic. They ask you to step out. They look you over with a trained eye, checking for the obvious signs: coherence, balance, skin color, sweat. They ask about nausea, headache, dizziness. You answer honestly, because lying is how you end up back in the basin. They hand you a packet of electrolyte powder. A simple thing. A small paper envelope with the minerals you lost, now returned by bureaucracy. You almost laugh again. Instead, you say thank you, and your voice sounds hoarse. You pour it into a bottle, shake it, and drink. It tastes like salty orange regret. Your body reacts quickly, not instantly healed, but relieved, like a machine getting oil after running dry. The cramps in your calves ease. The headache softens. Your mouth feels less useless. The ranger tells you the forecast for tomorrow. Hot again. Of course, this place does not get over itself. They tell you a story you have already lived, but they tell it anyway, because repetition saves lives. People underestimate the dryness. They underestimate how fast dehydration happens when sweat evaporates invisibly. They underestimate how the valley lies about distance. And they underestimate the basin shape, how it holds heat like a closed fist. You nod because nodding is easier than admitting you learned it the hard way. The ranger looks past you toward the dark outline of the mountains. They say something like, "It is a beautiful place, but it does not care." Then they tell you to get some rest, and if you feel worse, do not drive. They leave you with the lot light and the quiet hum of night insects. You sit back in the seat and let the electrolyte drink settle. You can feel your body accepting it, distributing it, like sending supplies to the front. The desert day is over, but the desert's effects are still working through you. You close your eyes again. This time, sleep comes heavier, more legitimate. And while you drift, the valley keeps doing what it does, radiating heat upward, cooling slowly, molecule by molecule, letting thin night air slide down the slopes, pooling in the low places, the basin breathing out but never fully exhaling. Hours later, before dawn, you wake again, not because you are refreshed, because your body is thirsty and because the car is cooling now in a way that feels strange. The valley is finally letting go of some heat. You step outside and feel it. The air is almost pleasant, cool enough to make your skin notice. The ground is still warm underfoot, but it is no longer burning through your shoes. The sky in the east is a deep gray, the first hint of coming light. This is the safe window you should have used from the beginning, the hours when the sun is not yet a weapon. You stand there in the quiet and look out toward where Badwater Basin lies. You cannot see it from here, but you can imagine it. A white crust in the dark, a floor of salt that looks like snow, until it starts cooking you from below. You think about the valley's shape again, the basin and range stretching that pulled the land apart. The crust here is being slowly torn, like a seam splitting in an old garment. Blocks of earth drop down, mountain ranges tilt up. Normal faults, a technical phrase that sounds harmless. In human terms, it is the ground breaking and rearranging itself over millions of years. This valley sank, those mountains rose, and in the low spot, air collects, heat collects, and water disappears. The valley did not choose to be deadly. It was built to be this way. You go back into the car and pack slowly. Your movements are steadier now. Your hands feel more like your hands. You drink more water, then wait, then drink again. You eat the last of your salty snacks and feel your stomach accept them without argument. You check your phone. Still no service, because of course. Then you start the engine and sit with the heater off. No air conditioning.